story like the back of my hand, 'cause I've heard it all before. You always say that you're the one that's in demand, and I don't know the score. And all the times that you have tried to play the game, trying to have things your own way, it's led to nothing and things still remain the same. And I don't wanna play. So you see that this is not the way to be, and the time has come to choose. If it comes down to a fight between you and me, then you are doomed to lose.
Hello everyone, welcome to Socialist Think Tank, welcome to New Year's Revolutions. We've got some absolutely brilliant guests for you tonight. We're going to talk about what we've enjoyed this year, what we think's been bad this year, and also what we're looking forward to next year. But we always like to be really positive on this show, so we're going to try and be as upbeat as possible. We've got some absolutely brilliant guests. Some of them will be here the whole time, some of them will be here for part of the time. So we've got Ian, I'm going to come to you first because you'll be the one who's leaving at about 7:30 to go and party, which is absolutely brilliant, and I bet you can't wait. So Ian, hi, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know a lot of people will already know exactly who you are.
So thank you very much for the invitation, and obviously happy New Year's Eve to you. And obviously I know we're here to look forward to a great 2022 for socialism too. My name's Ian Hodson. I'm the National President of the Bakers Food and Allied Workers Union. Obviously been involved in stuff around, like, used to be Fight for 10, but that was sold 2014. It's now Fight for 15. Did the Wetherspoon strike, with the Max strike. Obviously campaign against 0 hours contracts, and a couple of other campaigns that people probably don't know about. But obviously been very supportive of the Right to Food campaign, and looking forward to launching some new stuff around that in the new year.
That's some really good wins there already, and I'm sure one of those will be definitely part of your highlights when we ask you about that. So I'll come next to Chantelle. Chantelle, been on the show before, big favourite on Socialist Think Tank. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. All dressed up, nowhere to go with COVID, but happy to be on this show, guys. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Chantelle. I'm the founder of Mid-Side BLM Alliance, and I am an activist within many other organisations and campaigns. And Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, Happy New Year. I've just cracked open a beer for the first time in like 8 weeks, so I'm feeling a bit strange about that. I don't quite know how to go on, so ignore me. Next we have Anna. Anna, hi.
Right, okay. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see some old friends, new friends, and future friends. So I'm Anna Rothery, I think. But I'm a founder member of Mothers Protection of Children and Wars initiatives that I work on. We never give up, we keep forging forward. But I've had the privilege of working with Ian Strike, etc. Had the privilege of, and you know what? It's just great to be amongst comrades and like-minded people.
It's great to have you on, Anna. I think your connection might be a little bit dubious there, but we have mostly heard what you were saying there, so hopefully that'll rectify itself throughout the show. And I'm going to come to Dan next.
Yo, what's happening? Thanks for the invite to come on, guys. For anyone that doesn't know, I'm Dan. You might find me on Twitter or TikTok or Facebook or YouTube. I'm just a social media guy. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, man, I'm here to make memes about Tories and try and bring about socialism in any way we can, whether that's through trade unions, through organizing in communities, and just bigging up the people. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, nice one, guys. I gotta say, right, before like we get into the deeper things, right? Socialist think tank is like one of the best ideas, I think, on the internet, in terms of the fact that you guys have conversations about things, you have light-hearted conversations, you get deep into things. There's no kind of rules about what people can or can't say. It's not trying to be specific to one party or anything like that. And you support so many causes. So if there's one thing anyone watching tonight can do, is check out the Socialist Think Tank socials and donate or sign up, become a member of the Socialist Think Tank, because these guys do amazing stuff. Like every week they're streaming all different kinds of content, and I just think they are so underrated. So big up you guys, man.
Yeah, you can come back.
Do I get that $5 now? You give it to me now, or
it's on
PayPal?
The way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laurie, you might as well say hello yourself.
Yeah, hello. I'm sure everybody knows who I am by now. You'd be sick of seeing my face by now, I'm pretty sure. Laura Daly, one of the co-founders of Socialist Think Tank and the Women's Banner Group, and about a billion other things that it's funny that we're having this show tonight, actually, because I've been thinking about it today, about what actually were my highlights and lowlights and things. And honestly, the last 2 years have just kind of merged together so much that I'm really not sure if I'm going to be talking about this year or the year before. So it's been a weird one, and I'm really hopeful that, next year, starting tomorrow, it's all just going to be positive and sunshine and rainbows, but that's highly unlikely, I think. We'll see. I'm not going to bring us too far on a downer, but we might head that way tonight.
And I'm Paul, and that's all that needs to be said. So first thing I'm gonna ask about is let's start on a downer, and we'll move towards. I think what we'll do is we'll do all of Ian's, and the rest of us will come in and chat about Ian's and contribute to that, like we'll do with everyone else's. But we'll go through Ian first so that he can get his out, and we'll talk about ours a little bit later on. So Ian, what has been your low light of the year? What has been something that's been really negative to you?
There's been quite a few things that have been really negative. I mean, obviously the deaths through COVID. I mean, we should have had Anne Rothery as the mayor of Liverpool as well. There's been quite a number of political issues, but I think probably the drowning of 27 people, trying to get over here, was probably the lowest point, and the fact that the media seem to downplay it, and the way that it's been portrayed in the country, I think, has been absolutely appalling. I think that's probably as low as a country can be, and as low as a people can get. When in many cases they celebrated the fact that those people died. And I think that doesn't show the best of people at all. I like the dog. It's looking to get on the duologs, isn't it?
These are the brilliant things about doing things from home. Your dog just crawls in front of your camera at one point, but during a really serious moment as well, where we're talking about something, and then Penny appears to try and cheer us up.
She's a fan favourite though, so she's allowed.
Would anyone like to come in on that? I'm sure we've got quite a lot to say about what Ian said then, and that has been a real lowlight.
Yeah, like on the point of humans trying to cross the channel, trying to get over here, I think it shows the sad state of affairs of like ultimate capitalism, in that in the same with consumption of food, people try and they try and neutralize people in the media from the thought of your food being how animals are treated to get to our plate. In the same way, that is happening on a large scale with humans now. It's like there's that neutral feeling of, oh, it's some not more brown people dead. Oh, look, there's some more, you know what I mean? It's horrible. And the fact that so many people are so quick to lick a few boots and be like, well, they shouldn't have tried to come over here then. Do you know what I mean? And excuse the accent, it's just a Sun Reader accent. But it is what it is. But yeah, it's horrible that we've gotten to that state. But what is beautiful that's come out of that, though, is there's some awesome people, and people you wouldn't even expect, to have done things like they've bought a boat and they're out on the channel watching what's going on and observing and reporting it to services, using it to take people to court, take authorities to court on how they're dealing with this situation. And there is a lot of work on the other side when it comes to immigration and people who have managed to get over to the UK, like that beautiful scene in Scotland where a man climbed under the immigration van. I don't know what those vans are called. They're are we allowed to swear on here, by the way? I always forget.
Yeah.
All right, those cunt vans where they try and deport people.
Oh, you went in big there, Dan.
yeah. Come on, it's New Year's Eve. What am I gonna lose? But yeah, they try and cling on to the guy clinged onto the bottom of the van, and hundreds of people from the local area just came out and stopped that van from being able to deport that person or people that were there. And I think that's the important thing we've always got to do as well, just to add on the end, is these are people. They're not immigrants, they're not refugees, they're not asylum seekers. That's just a status. They are people, they are humans, they are brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, all of them thing there, you know what I mean? So there's a positive to add on to that. But I get, what you're saying, Ian, it is a horrible state.
Anna, it was mentioned to you about your mayoral campaign that kind of never got off the ground, did it? You were running to be the Labour candidate for Liverpool Mayor, and that was a last straw for quite a few people in the Labour Party. Have we got you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about being denied the opportunity to represent my city. And to fight, the big fights that need to be fought in terms of, child poverty and all the other awful initiatives that have been put forward through this government. And so, on a personal level, that was probably one of the lows for me. But, the thing is, we are a collective. It's not about an individual. And some of the things that really, really, injured me to the core with the way that our people were treated, in terms of universal credit, in terms of the cuts to benefits, in terms of people with disabilities, our young children. I mean, last year I had a family of 3 boys who were sharing one jacket in the dead of winter, and they were rotating this jacket each day. So the levels of poverty that we saw, we hadn't seen since Dickensian Britain. And, the reality is that, our government is so out of touch with reality at a time when you would think that people would tap into their emotional intelligence because of the pandemic. Our government just removed itself completely from situations. And, and one thing I would have to say, it was down to the people in our communities who rallied together and managed to do everything that they could, apart, from delivering meals to pensioners and doing the shop and to dog walking to, making sure that people weren't lonely through the phone and talking to people. But, we can't lose sight of the fact that, this is a failure of the duty of care in terms of our government. And whilst I'm very proud of our comrades who stepped in, we shouldn't have to be doing this. We have a government there who have a remit to make sure that the citizens of this country are all looked after carefully at times of crisis. And so there was some real lows for me, I think. And I think what you said, Laura, about the 2 years roll into one, because they do, basically, because we lost all sense of time and all sense of, issues, because it was an awful 2 years that we've had to live through.
Absolutely. Laura, did you want to come in and bring in Chantelle? Or?
No, I'm
Chantelle,
really
did you want
listening.
did you want to say anything, Chantelle?
Yeah, I'm just going to check you can hear me because I've had
you're good.
issues.
You're good.
Yeah, just the kind of, obviously, the dehumanisation of people trying to cross the channel, and the fact that we're so far removed from, that image about 5-6 years ago, the little boy who died coming off the beach, and this big united cry for that to never happen again, to now, you can face legal action if you actually try to save someone from drowning. It's just horrendous. It's like we're living in this dystopian universe. And obviously, as has kind of been touched upon, a down for me was just everything that's really been going on with Labour recently. Obviously, our Anna not becoming mayor as we all wanted. But then, you don't I'm someone who's up and down the country for activism on panels, talking to people all the time. And the amount of times that I'm on a panel, and it's nothing to do with like Labour, it'll be, maybe a Kill the Bill panel, maybe a People's Assembly panel, maybe a panel talking about racism. And people are just standing up and saying, I've had it with Labour, I've cut up my membership, I don't want to be a part of it anymore, it doesn't represent me, they're not listening to me. And you hear that without even asking. And so for me, it's like, what are Labour hearing? If I'm just hearing this as like an activist on the street, just going out into the community, what are Labour hearing and why are they so tone deaf? So that was a real downer for me. And then also everything to do with the police sentencing and court bill, which is obviously hanging over our heads and has some for pretty much the entire year. We've got this legislation which is going to criminalise process, but also criminalise particular groups such as Black people, rolling back stop and search within, so it can be conducted mainly in diverse communities without suspicion or belief, criminalising the activities of travellers, criminalising the movements, criminalising open water swimming. There's so many legislations that basically, for me, will fall under the umbrella of criminalising the actions of the working class, unsolicited police crime sentencing and court bill. And then a load more have been kind of shoehorned in. And for me, the initial battle was just getting our politicians, like Labour, to actually resist it and not to abstain, and then getting the public to wake up, and then kind of getting people to really, put this campaign of resistance together. But to see that bill just to me says, I hate the working class and I don't want you to disagree with me. I want to legislate so you can never have a voice and you can never disagree with me. And to think that that's where we're at as this, supposedly free country. And a lot of people who you think would be speaking out against this bill have just remained suspiciously silent. So a lot of the legislation that Priti Patel has brought in, without even touching on, the borders that way you can lose your passports now. A lot of the legislation that she's brought in is just absolutely chilling. And for me, I don't think she would have got away with it if she wasn't a woman of colour. So that shows quite often how people who look like me can be weaponised against communities who they're supposed to be protecting and kind of looking out for. So that's been a massive downer for me, and it's been throughout the year because it just doesn't seem to go away. We batted away the Lords amend it, and then they come back with like more amendments, and it's like, oh my god, it's awful.
I think just going back to sort of what Ian was talking about the the tragic death of those people trying to cross the channel. I saw this meme that I just thought really just was perfect for it. There's the kids up. And it was so simple, and it was like a picture of French people in their boat and British people in their boat, and they're going, they're my fish, no, they're my fish, no, they're my fish. And then the next picture was, no, they're your people, no, they're your people. And I was like, oh my god, that's just perfect how that all we're bothered about is commodification of things that we can own and make money from, and just it's just like they say, the dehumanization of it was just so upsetting. And like, I think one of the most upsetting things about that was it wasn't surprising. I was like, yeah, I fully expected that reaction to that actually, and it's sickening, it really is. So I'm that was a definite low light, Ian. I'm totally on your page there. I know we've only got you for another sort of 5-10 minutes or so, Ian. So I'd like to take the next sort of few minutes just really to hear from you. Every week, the rest of us can bleat on about everything else later. I definitely want to come back to Chantelle, what you were talking about all this legislation that's just being forced through. You know, we can pick that apart for probably about 10 shows. But yeah, for now, Ian, obviously we've heard about the laws and all the terrible stuff that I know even you personally have been through within politics over the past sort of 1 to 2 years. But what about sort of your positives, and what about what do you think's coming ahead for the next year or 3 years if the next one's roll into one as well?
Well, it's 2022 again, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's pronounced, isn't it?
2020, the return.
Yeah. I mean, on highlights, I mean, obviously could go international with Chile, and what could be the end of neoliberalism. Obviously, Dan referred to the stopping of people being deported in Glasgow. I mean, there's been some great the strikes that have been successful. The fact that workers are standing up and fighting back. But probably my highlight is, I mean, obviously, if you know the history of our trade union and the role it played in creating the Labour Party, the fact that our members attended a conference and had the courage to recognise the historic role that we played, but made the decision to say that the Labour Party is no longer a socialist party and no longer represented of the interests of working class people, and voted 99.9% in favour to disaffiliate, which was a pretty resounding decision. There was only one person that wouldn't vote for it because they believed the meeting should have been physical, but they would have supported it if it had been physical. Demonstrates that we are clear and together in our approach to what we believe is our right to political voice. And when we speak on behalf of our members, and when our members ask us to carry out their policies, we do that, which is what we've always tried our best to do. And because of that decision, what we're looking at doing now is reinvesting that money that we used to give to the Labour Party. And we're going to do it in community organising. We're going to be, working up and down the country in food pantries, for example, giving advice and support to people in the community on 0 hours contracts, for example. We'll be giving employment advice. We'll be on the streets of Wigan on the 8th of January, signing up the Right to Food petition. We'll be collecting food and giving it into the pantries there to help in the local community to make sure that people can eat. We'll be organising workers, but most importantly, we'll be creating community organisers on the ground that hopefully will then lead to the politicisation of our class, so they understand the importance of politics, but how important it is that our representation is there and is heard and is not ignored, and it isn't part of some elite exercise on whom has the ability to improve their lives. We're all entitled to have our lives improved, and that's what we are aiming to do with our political fund now, and that's how we will invest, and that's the strategy that we will be using. Politicised communities and politicised workplaces to understand how we deserve and can get better when we stand together in solidarity.
Absolutely brilliant, Ian. Thank you. I just wanted to ask you a question. I know you've only got like a couple of minutes left, but I've noticed some things locally when I'm talking to people who aren't really that political or aren't interested, but definitely identify as being working class. And they always say to me, "Oh, Labour should be for the working class, but they're not," or whatever. Do you find that taking the Labour Party out of the equation helps you connect with people sometimes who are like that, who are definitely working class but feel like they've been betrayed?
Yeah. I mean, that you do get a lot of that. I mean, the interesting thing is obviously, we will still work with some people in the Labour Party. but we will be able to work with people who hold our values as well outside of the Labour Party. There's quite a number of new political parties that are sprouting up. I've had some great communication with some of them. And, I think it's interesting. And when you talk about 2022, I think the council elections could be, quite interesting too. I know Labour thinks it's going to, walk the next election now, and all it needs to do is continue down the path of the Tories becoming more and more unpopular, and they'll just walk into Westminster because it's their turn. But I think they're in for a shock, as they found in every by-election. And I think next year, it'll come home to roost. The cost of living crisis that's going to come to so many people's doors, and the failure of the Labour Party to stand up for people will be a real eye-opener when it comes to those council elections, because they haven't done anything to protect people. They haven't spoke about the issues that are going to impact them. And I think, there'll be an awful lot of independent councillors and small parties that may come back and make a real difference to the political landscape. And, that's my big hope for 2022. And obviously, as part of what we want to achieve in our process is to try and encourage that in the communities that we go and work in.
Thank you so much for that, Ian. And on behalf of Socialist Think Tank, thanks for coming on tonight. We will have another guest replacing you. Not that you're replaceable or anything like that, but we've got Jeremy Corbyn who's coming in very shortly. So hopefully his answers will be half as good as yours. We'll look forward to that. What I'm going to do now, and thanks again, Ian. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a clip from Socialist Think Tank South East's Jane, who's going to tell us her highlights and lowlights and hopes for the future for the year. And when we come back, we may have Jeremy in. Ian will have gone, so let's say bye to Ian, and thanks so much. And there's a lot of love for you on the chat going on here as well. So and thanks for all that you do and all of the wins that have inspired us, especially the McStrike and things like that have been a really positive thing for us. And we've had people on speaking about that before. So thanks again, and we will see you soon.
Solidarity.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Love to see you all.
Happy New Year.
My highlight of 2021 was Sharon Graham winning the Unite Leadership contest. With so many people working in poor employment conditions in this country now, wages that they can't afford to live on, working on 0-hour contracts or working for agencies in insecure employment, or just in really bad conditions where it's not safe, or the work that they're having to do, it's just not at a healthy level for them. And it's really important that we can stand together and help each other to be able to change this situation and make improvements. We need people leading the unions who understand that situation and want to make positive improvements for workers. And I'm so very happy that one of the two candidates who I felt would offer this won the leadership contest. It's really important. My low point of 2021 was the High Court decision to allow the US to extradite Julian Assange. Although it might seem like quite an abstract thing to many of us, a man we've never met, having been up on charges for things that some of us don't know about. But when I was younger, I used to read about authoritarian states where people could be tortured, murdered, or just disappear if their face didn't fit and they said the wrong thing, and people were frightened to speak up against the regime. I felt I was very lucky not to be living in a country like that. The fact that this country is prepared to hand Julian Assange over to a so-called civilized power that it's now apparent has plotted his kidnap and murder in recent years as a result of his revealing human rights abuses, including torture and murder, by that very same authority, makes me very worried about the society that we live in. And my prediction for 2022 would be that John Smith's book, I Stood With Harry, about his time during the last years of his father, Harry Leslie Smith's life, and about his life since Harry's sad passing, will be published. So Harry was a fantastic man, a real inspiration, and I've really enjoyed reading John's comments on social media and his new blog, and I'm really looking forward to reading his book, so I'm hoping that that will be published in the next year.
Okay, thanks very much to Jane. Hopefully, you didn't have sound issues there. We had a little on the call here, I think, but I think you will be okay at home. I think that would have come out absolutely fine. So Julian Assange was the low light there for Jane, and I think, like, you know, a lot of us were really despondent at the idea of what the people will do in order to make sure that, you know, the establishment retains its power. Okay, Laura, do you want to do the next bit?
Yeah, I can. It's weird being the host. You're so good at it. Yeah, so obviously in keeping with the theme of tonight's show of lowlights and highlights, I know we have heard a little bit from yourself, Anna, already, but I'd really love you to go into more detail just around those things. You know, what is it that, is there one specific thing that was really low light and one specific thing that was a really highlight? I don't think it'll be difficult for us to sort of have an idea of where those conversations are going to go for you.
Together. I mean, I'm a team player. I've always been a team player. I don't think that we can achieve everything individually or, you know, alone. We need that support of many varied, you know, people. Okay, it's great to work with like-minded people, but we also need to work with people who don't think the same as us, because they bring something new, you know, to the table to in terms of change. And so for me, yeah, it was difficult in terms of being denied it. And people know that I challenged it, and I challenged it legally. You know, for what that got me, literally shattered my belief in justice in this city, in this country, because, you know, the outcome was almost as appalling as the initial decision. You know, and I haven't spoken about it, you know, at all in any detail to anybody, because I was still trying to sort of absorb that and compartmentalize everything and sort of get my head around what I'd actually been through. And so, you know, the thing about not being able to stand, I mean, that was only one element of what I was doing. Everybody knows I'm a huge equality, you know, champion, and I've been doing that even before I was elected 16 years ago. I've done that all my life. And so at the same time, I'd been the middle lead for equality for the city. And I'd been working on strategies with our partners, not just locally and nationally, but internationally. And I'd been doing it, you know, I had carte blanche. I wasn't really answerable to anybody. I was allowed to go off and do what I knew would make a big difference. And so the other thing about not being able to become the leader, I was also stripped of that position as well, which was a vindictive act, you know, as far as I can see, not against me, just me personally, but against all the people who were dependent on those changes around economic equality, you know, access to employment, business startup, and so on and so forth. But, you know, for me, that was a huge low, but it didn't stop me because I'm the eternal optimist. It didn't stop me. So I carried on working on the initiatives. I'm working with Hope University on their social work program for the global majority. I've also got 3 other initiatives that I'm doing with Hope University. And I would really like to say that the Vice Chancellor, Gerard Pile, has been a huge advocate for the changes that we need to make and a great support. And so what dawned on me was that, you know, that the council had been a huge hindrance in terms of bringing about the changes that we need to see. Working with the external partners, everything was moving really quickly. It was, you know, you could get decisions quite quickly. And so as I did with Hope University and the social workers program, I only brought the Liverpool City Council on board at the 11th hour. And that was literally to say, do you want to be part of this or do you not want to be part of it? And, you know, that's an ideal way of working, because the bureaucracy of trying to work with a local council is just, you know, it's mind-boggling. You cannot achieve anything if you have to go through all that bureaucracy. So I was freed from those constraints and those chains. So that was a low and a high for me. I think also in terms of the economic development for our communities and ensuring that we could replace the funding matrices that have led to this, you know, isolation of community organisations, with something that would bring real change in terms of income and revenue and, you know, really give people real equality, economic equality. So working on initiatives like CANCO, which was the first major investment in Black businesses in Liverpool for decades, and created 14 new business startups with a fantastic anchorage on a part of the City Lodge Lane, which has been underfunded for decades. So that's still going on, still working on that. And then, you know, there's other initiatives as well around economic equality. So not all is lost, shall we say. I think in terms of the highlights, there is always a silver lining, and I think it's my optimism that keeps me coming through all the time and saying, right, come on, get back on your horse and keep going. I received a senior fellowship from Hope University this year for the work that I've done around equality, and it just goes to show you can work with a government or a party, you know, your entire life, and people just go, no, we don't want to discuss what she's done, or, you know, and it's not about personal things that you've done, but the impact that it has on the wider community. And so I'm really looking forward to the fellowship ceremony in January. But, you know, it's not just about the fellowship and the ceremony. It's a long-term commitment from that university to say, we actually like what you're doing. We can actually see your strategy and we want to help you to deliver it. And so for me, that's a huge high. You know, we've got the oldest Black community in the whole of Europe, spanning over 400 years. And, you know, and that's in Liverpool. You know, and so you wouldn't think that when you look at all of the hurdles that we have to jump over just to be able to survive. It's unbelievable. I think the other work that I was doing was around Windrush, and I've been doing the work around Windrush for the last 6-7 years. And when Jeremy comes on, he might recall me bringing it to Women's Conference at Telford, which was his seat. And before that, you know, people were literally sitting on the fence. The government was sitting on the fence. People were like, oh, it's Windrush. We don't really know what we're doing with this. And Jeremy got behind it. And, you know, he put his commitment behind it and we were able to forge ahead. But I also think that we have to recognise people like the Black lawyers who've been working for the compensation scheme, have been challenging decisions, stopping the deportations and so on and so forth. So there's a whole... it's an organic flow in terms of the equality agenda. And I don't just work around, you know, equality for the global community. I also work with our transgender community, LGBT, because I believe that if we don't go forward together, we will just flounder. And so, you know, the equality issue is what's always driven me and will continue to drive me. And, you know, our party or my former party, because another highlight of this year for me is I actually went independent as an independent councillor and a couple of months ago, and that freed me from the constraints. But, you know, one of the reasons why I left the party was because the party had actually left me. You know, in terms of, you know, why I joined as a teenager was because I actually believed that we were about equality, and all those underpinning arguments for, you know, workers' rights and employment and so on and so forth. It was quite an awakening when I realised that actually, no, we no longer represent that. And so, you know, I think the point that Ian made before about we're going to see a resurgence of people from other parties, independents and so on and so forth, you know, I welcome that, you know, because we used to discuss it. We're no longer able people to do that. So the only way that we can have those really deep and meaningful conversations is by working with a collective of people. And it, regardless of, and Ian said, you know, not necessarily just the Labour Party, we've got some great independent parties, emerging parties up and down the country who are doing incredibly wonderful things. And I think that that will bring something solid to the table going forward. So, I mean, I think the future looks bright in spite of, you know, some of the downturns in terms of the last 2 years. And, you know, I intend to continue in politics, and I will be up for re-election in 2023, along with many other people when we come to the elections. So, you know, I'm just going to keep on keeping on and keep driving forward like I've always done.
Brilliant. Chantelle, I'm going to come to you for a reaction there.
Can we just do a call out quickly for 2023? Like, everyone needs to be in Prince's Park Ward campaigning for the absolute #1 comrade in the whole of the UK, yeah? If you ain't in Prince's Park in the 2023 elections, then you ain't nobody.
Nice.
Yeah, well, Chantelle, I'm coming to you for a reaction.
That, Dan, you know, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, there was a bit of crossed wires there. Chantelle, you ready?
I'm ready. Obviously, loved everything Anna said then, especially around the kinds of work that Anna's done with social workers from global majority populations, because that's something very close to my heart. And the lack of representation within social services and within social work is it's ridiculous at the moment, and has been for some time. But I love that Anna's gone independent, and I love that I love that people are moving away from Labour now, because I feel like, as was said earlier, Labour do need a wake-up call, and they've had over a year. It's been said since 2020, you know, people aren't happy. People are they don't feel represented, they don't feel listened to. And I think the only thing they are going to listen to is people voting with their feet. Like, a highlight for me this year has been socialism, like, not being a dirty word anymore. You go out there and you hear a lot, especially, you know, obviously Corbyn started it was all because of Corbyn, and what Corbyn did to politicise a generation. But socialism was a bit of a radical position for a long time, especially with young people. And now you go to so many places and it's like, yeah, we need socialism. What is this alternative? And so many people are looking for alternatives outside of Labour, because Labour, although with a leader like Jeremy Corbyn, it could be a socialist party. It's not a socialist party, as Keir Starmer's kind of made very clear at the moment. It depends on who's there and who's leading. So for me, this kind of push from the ground upwards of, you know, we need alternatives. We need people with real socialist values like Anna. We want those people in positions of leadership. And I think, obviously, the past year, or the past 2 years, if we kind of include 2020, has really shown us what socialism would have done. You know, look at other countries who gave people like a basic wage to stay at home, who really looks after people, you know, protected their incomes, encouraged them to stay at home, versus the UK, where it was like every man for themselves. If you don't work from home, just see if you live. Like, just let us all out there while this ongoing pandemic. And even, you know, some of the things that Jeremy says when he was running for election, like, every house should have internet. Internet is like a basic necessity. Wi-Fi is a basic necessity. He was laughed out the room, and then literally 2 months later, it was like, we all need Wi-Fi. It's a basic necessity. But not every home did get Wi-Fi, and there's kids who are years behind now because they couldn't do their work at home. So, like, I feel like the past year, and obviously a bit of 2020, was just the biggest I told you so for JC, and obviously for the arguments in favour of socialism. And it's the worst possible I told you so we could have had. But I think it's really woken people up that there is an alternative, and there's an alternative that doesn't mean that we have people on the street and people dying and people so far behind because they can't keep up with the capitalist machine. So, like, that's been a real high for me. And also the leaders with real values like Anna, who aren't just using socialism as a buzzword, because we've seen those leaders who've said, oh, I'm a socialist, and then you watch what they're doing and you're like, which part of you's a socialist? The bit that can spell socialist, you know, because nothing else I'm seeing makes you a socialist. But the fact that those leaders are kind of, you know, making their own path and being really clear about their aims and what they're going to continue doing, it's just been so empowering. So, like, everything Anna said was amazing, and just keep doing what you do. And you should be the mayor. Like, I have the same feeling about JC about Anna being the mayor. I'm like, you're the mayor we should have had. And everything that happens like at the moment is like there's just been so many bits, like especially with the the campaign against the arms fair and stuff. Like Anna was on the ground campaigning with us. You know what I mean? And it's like if she'd been mayor, would that have happened? So there's just so many things where you're just like, oh, if only we'd had the mayor we needed and the mayor we deserved. And hopefully we'll get there one day, because I still do hold out hope. I do think 2023.
I mean, if I can just come back in, I mean, the arms fair was, a massive issue for Liverpool. And, and I, apart from being on the ground and protesting and stuff, I was also I met with the ACC and I was, ticked off for doing that. But I tried to appeal to their better sense. And, I had a conversation about, the impact it would have on the city as a city of sanctuary, where every child matters, where we're supposed to be a welcoming city, and the impact it would have in terms of the cancellations, and some of the arguments that were being put forward, was the cost it would it would be to cancel the arms fair, the lost revenue that we got, I think, from places like NEU, National Education Union, cancelling, some of the big names like Massive Attack, etc., who also cancelled, and so on and so forth. This wasn't just about an arms fair per se. This was about, these weapons that, were being packaged as, oh, well, we'll have less civilian deaths because of them. Really, no. No, really, no. So it was a massive issue, a global issue, but it was also, it challenged the concept of Liverpool, because we'd fought long and hard for those, those names like City of Sanctuary and a welcoming city. And, and also, and the thing for me was that at the very same time when we were welcoming people to the city, from, who were political refugees, etc., we would also, it was just so out of kilter. Because on one hand we were saying, yeah, come to our city, we'll offer you protection. And with the other hand we were saying, but we're going to have an arms fair here. And they're probably the same people that had something to do with the wars that you've just had to leave your home, families, etc. for as well. So there were some huge issues. And I think, just to respond to Chantelle, it wouldn't have been something I would have shied away had I have become mayor. And I think this city leadership, where people are not frightened to shy away from the big issues, because we are literally creating a legacy for our young people in this city. And we want to create a legacy that our young people can actually be proud of going forward.
See, that worries me, the idea that like people who would have done the right thing have been stopped from within their own systems. It's that system within a system that keeps the establishment in place. And that's what's worrying me about like how the Labour Party has behaved over the past year. It's keeping those people out of the positions that where change can be made. I actually have completely lost faith that the current system can be changed from within the system, to be honest. I think we need to be doing things completely outside of the system and changing the system itself rather than trying to work within it, because there are so many mechanisms to keep the establishment in place. Yeah, that's my weird rant. So, Dan, I'm going to come to you now. You've been quiet for a little while, and it's the first time I've ever known that in my life, because these brilliant people have been speaking. So,
when there are women in the room, I have nothing to say. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially these. Do you know what I mean? Like, woo, we're among elites. We're among elites right now. What am I, there's so much to comment on. What am I commenting on?
Well, we can move on to your highlights and lowlights of the year. I think that was comprehensively done. Anna and Chantelle, they've completely covered that one, I think. So why don't you move on to your highlights and lowlights, and we already kind of did lowlights, so
yeah, sure. Let's do some big. Did you know what? Yeah, big up the people this year, right? Because we have not had the Labour Party, right? Since 2015, right, to 2019, the Labour Party was speaking on issues we needed to hear about, right? Jeremy and his front bench were putting issues into the media that we needed to hear, yeah? All of them were covering workers' rights. They were covering the rights of people coming into the UK from other countries. They were talking about the corruption within the government, and they were doing a fantastic job. They were up against a lot of problems, and maybe they didn't get everything right, but they were putting stuff in the limelight that we needed to be in the limelight in terms of a socialist agenda. But this year we had 2020 as a recovery year, right? People did their job. People did a good job in 2020. But in 2021, people have come together and they've started to take on issues, right? Okay, like we haven't won at everything that we've gone for, but I tell you what, there are some big wins in what's happened. Forget party politics. Let's talk about Cambo. Stop Cambo. The campaign up in Scotland to stop a new oil rig being built and more fossil fuels being pulled out of the ground. Right, their first big challenge, they've managed to stop that. Shell, the statement from Shell was actually the whole thing is too toxic. There's too many people involved. They can't get involved in that project. That's because of the power of people, right? We look over to North London, right? Go the other side of the country, where there was the Latin markets, the Latin village, where people took on the council, the big developers, and they won. They saved a space for people of color from Latin communities to be able to continue to have their businesses, to be able to live, and the big developers did not win. Across the world, right? I'm just looking at the UK, but across the world, there have been so many people-powered campaigns that have won. And I'm talking about a lot of the time, this is working class people, people of color, some of the most marginalized people in any community, and they're winning. So I think that the highlight for me is the people, because people have not said that, oh, Bernie didn't win, oh, Jeremy didn't win, oh, the West is fucked. They said, you know what? It's time for us to come together and fight. And look where socialism is winning. South America, the global South. Socialism is winning in the global South right now. And we in the West, or the global North, you know, however you want to call it. I always get confused which one we are now because everyone changes it. But in the global North, we need to be looking to the global South, right? Look to South America. Look where socialism is winning. Look where people are making change in politics. Think about how they've done that. We read the books. We read the books of Chavez. We read the books of Che Guevara and all these people. But that's because it's taken a long, long time. So when people are like, oh no, we're fucked in Parliament for another 10 years, calm. Parliament is a building in London. But you know what, yeah? Toxteth, Durham, Birmingham, Dudley, you know, Moss Side, all these different places across the UK, yeah, I could name hundreds and hundreds. This is where we build change. This is where we make change. We make change in our communities, where we live, the people around us, in our workplaces. Big up all the trade unions, yeah, because they're all doing it. Look at CW, UCU, IWGB, all these unions making changes, right? And that's people power. It's not thanks to the Labour Party. It's not thanks to the Socialist Workers' Party or any party. It's thanks to people coming together and making change. So big up the blood clot people, man, because damn it, oi, people are making change. And then, right, the next step, once you start to make change in your communities, you find people like Anna, right? And then you get them elected into politics and you get more and more of them. I love this. This has turned into an animal thing. I wish I liked my cat so that I could get my cat on screen, but I don't like my cat. But like, once you find those leaders in your communities, right? Now, I'm going to tell you something funny in the middle of my cat jumps on my belly in the middle of the night and it probably like lands off the window shelf and I wake up and I'm like, oh, and I feel like I've been punched. That's why I don't like my cat. I don't hate animals. Anyway, we need to find people like in our communities that are leaders and we need to help them, encourage them to get into politics. But when we get them into politics, and I think Anna, personally, you know, you've been a mentor to me over the years, right? I feel like you haven't always had the support of everyone around you, everyone in your community. And that's sometimes caused problems. And I feel like we need to do more to support the people who are willing to take a step up, right? They might get something wrong. They might not agree with everything we say. We might not agree with everything they say. But damn it, when people who have the right politics are fighting for all of us, let's get behind them. Let's support them and let's get them into politics, whether it's local council, parish council, or even we take that big step where we get them into parliament. then boy, so long as they've come from the movement of the working class, workers movement, from socialism, then we're gonna do well. We're gonna do well. So 2022 for me, you know, like in China, they have like the year of the snake, the year of this. 2022 for me is the year of the people, because the people are gonna win when it comes to socialism. And then we're gonna keep fighting, and we're gonna continue that. So there's some hope, some inspiration, some good vibes, and all of them things there. So yeah, if you're feeling down, look to Anna Rothery.
Nice. I think it's just like loads of love for you, Dan, as always in the comments. You know, you've made people spill drinks and all sorts. It's amazing, and I think we would be with you. You know, we would be absolutely with you on all of that. It is very much going to be a people-powered movement that needs to happen. I think the last 2 years have shown that the government simply don't give a shit. They just aren't going to do anything for us. We need to do it ourselves. And it's interesting, recently the Don't Look Up film on Netflix has been getting a lot of attention. It's absolutely brilliant. Anyone who tells you it's shit, they haven't watched it properly. Anyway, moving on from that. The point about that was sort of a comment on climate change, a comment on politicians, a comment on the rich billionaires in our society and how they have far too much power and all of that. But I don't think the idea behind that was that we need to educate the people on what's happening. What I'm finding is that the people already know what's going on. It's become very clear. Just look at the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, you know? Everybody knows that power and money makes you get away with whatever you want, and that, you know, it is all about holding up institutions that are not for working class people. I do think people know that. I think the job of you know, of all of us as socialists, as trade unionists, as people who want to start that fight back for the next year and continuing that on, is to mobilise, is to find a way to collectivise and bring people together. And, you know, we've said this loads of times, it's not about taking on the world. It's not about trying to get, I mean, we had an opportunity, didn't we, with Jeremy? It was there, it was ready. We could have had such a better society. That has gone. You know, that probably won't come back for a good long time. But what we can do is get community groups together, is start building in our neighbourhoods and grow from there. You know, the conversations that need to happen haven't been happening, mainly because we've been locked in our house for 2 years, and people are far too busy just trying to pay the bills, just trying to get a coat for all of their children, you know, like Anna was saying. So it is really difficult, those conversations, to get working class people to realise that their voice is the voice of the people, and there are many, many, many more of us than there are billionaires. That's the fight we need to bring now, because there's no point in us fighting an elite system that is just going to sit there and look after itself. We need to fight for our communities, and we've seen it works as well. Look at Marcus Rashford. You know, he's a football player and he changed government's stance on things. We can do that. We need to lobby the right people. We need to get together and just put the pressure on. But it's finding a common ground with people to do that, because honestly, people are downtrodden and they're beaten up and they're skint and they're tired. And, you know, some of us are still recovering from homeschooling. So it's a big job, but I think that's where we need to focus. So Dan, I think you're absolutely right. 2022 needs to be the year of the people fighting back. And I think we can do it. We can. We've got to find hope somewhere, right?
Definitely. I think, to be honest, one of my other highlights of the year has obviously been, since 2020, just people seeing people out there on the ground fighting back. Like, I've never seen... I remember maybe 5 years ago, I've always kind of been on the ground with trade unions and stuff and been on the picket lines. And, you know, you see the same people, you see everyone you've always seen, you see the same faces. And then during the lockdown, something changed. And all of a sudden, everyone was out there. Everyone was kind of saying no more. And literally for the past 18 months, I've been going to protests, going to campaigns, going out on the streets, and it's more and more people are feeling it. So I feel like, hopefully, like, my prediction for 2022 is that momentum is going to lead to coordinated action, because you have bodies, you have boots on the ground, you have people on the street like furious and wanting to act, and cross campaigns. Like someone said to me the other day, it's mad because, you know, obviously I'm BLM, but we also link in with Kill the Bill, one of the founders of that. We've linked in with Reclaim Pride Liverpool. We've done a lot of kinds of cross campaign, you know, we've worked together on bigger issues. And someone said you wouldn't have seen that like 20 to 30 years ago. It was kind of like, you know, I'm a civil rights movement, I'm an LGBT movement. Everyone kind of stayed in the lane. And they were like, is that an accident? And I was like, no, that's like deliberately we've gone out to every community. Like, I didn't think I'd be standing on the front line with GRT kinds of campaigners and activists, but we found that common ground and we are out there. And I just hope, I think in 2020, I was like dead optimistic and I was like, it's going to happen in 6 months. But it feels like 2022 might be the year that we get those roots and we create change. And as you say, from the ground up.
I hope so.
100.
And I have
I've got to agree that, like, it's got to be across the board. It has to be. And that's why I mentioned, you know, communities, workplaces, all of them. And I think you can look to many of the unions or the unions that I mentioned, UCU, CW, and others. Like, look at Unite right now, the way they're changing cause. Mad movements in Unite right now. Like, big up Len, but like new leadership, new movements. And they're going in a direction where they're basically saying, we need to build a movement of the people. There is no change in Parliament without a movement of the people. And I think, you know, credit to what's been done in the Labour Party over the last 5 years. But right now, imagine what happened over the last 5 years with an even bigger movement of the people. So let's wait that 10 years for change in Parliament. And in that 10 years, let's organise, let's agitate, let's educate, let's do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I have to say, one of my absolute... Oh, sorry, Hannah.
Sorry. No, sorry. Oh, no, I was just going to come in and say... Sorry, I was just going to come in and say, you know, the reality is that organisation has taken place. You know, don't ever underestimate the work that people are doing on the ground, because it's not in the tabloids, it's not on the news, it's, you know, it's not out there. We know that we've got a groundswell of people who have just had enough. But also, you know, we've gone back to that old kind of way that we used to. I mean, when I first joined the Labour Party, I was a teenager. I mean, I'm probably closer to Jeremy's age than anybody else's in this panel today. But, you know, I remember, you know, going on the marches, you know, Free the Shrewsbury too, buttering mounds of bread because there were so many marches taking place because people had had enough. And we're back at that point now. People have just had enough. And they're like, you know what? There's nothing left to lose. We need to pull together about the change that we need to see. And, you know, I don't think it'll end well yet, but I know that there's some fantastic work taking place on the ground from, you know, from John O'Groats up to Land's End. So keep saying, keep doing what you're doing. Don't allow yourselves to be divided and ruled. Because that is the old adage of doing things, and just stay on point. We can make a massive difference and a massive change in society.
Absolutely. And I think I just have to come back on something that was
Jeremy.
said there.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy. We'll bring you in a second, I promise.
Happy New Year.
One of my absolute highlights was the protest at the Tory party conference, and Chantelle, you were right up there at the front. Oh my god, it was just so amazing. And like I really totally fangirled you at that. I got to the front to take some photos for Socialist Think Tank. I was like, oh my god, I know her. It was amazing. And the amount of people who were there, and the noise and the passion, you know, it's getting out and doing stuff like that really makes you remember that you're not on your own. You're not having all of this hatred and worry and depression, you know, stored inside of you. There are a lot of people who feel the same way as you, and once we get out and see each other again, I do think it's going to just be amazing if we can have another event like that. And, you know, you guys will be up there with your megaphones. Oh man, it's really inspiring. We've got one more quick clip to show from Socialist Think Tank
London.
Is it London? You're bringing
We'll go
Kat
London.
in.
We'll bring Kat in.
Yeah, Socialist Think Tank London. We're going to show a little
It's only
clip,
a minute, and then
we'll bring Jeremy in.
Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your night. And my highlight of 2021 has without doubt been community, whether that's on picket lines, in branch meetings, or in spaces like this, in what Socialist Think Tank does. These spaces are so important. and it's where we listen to each other, it's where we share our views, and it's where we grow stronger together as a community. My low light, that's an easy one. That's our pitiful government, and to a certain degree the pitiful opposition that is faced, and it's only us that can change that, whether we're inside or outside of the party. It's up to us. My prediction for 2022 is that that spirit of community is what drives us forward. It's what genuinely fights injustice. It's what genuinely makes material difference for the people who are struggling the most. And it's also what nourishes us. So we're in this together. Solidarity forever. And I hope you have a great night.
So that was Kat Cray from Socialist Think Tank London there, really saying a lot of the things that were very similar to what's been said so far tonight about that hope for the community to drive us on. So what we're going to do now, Jeremy, we're going to come to you and talk about like what's been the low light of the year, what's been the highlight of the year, and what's your prediction for next year. But before we do that, I'm hearing every now and then the odd Tory person will say, well, you know, imagine what would have happened if Corbyn was in charge. Can you imagine it would have been, what if you'd have been in charge? Can you imagine doing a worse job? Like, how would it have been possible? Because to have done a worse job, I'm interested in your comeback on that one.
Thanks, Paul. First of all, I've got this here.
Yay!
Class. Woo!
So
How has Jeremy got a T-shirt and I haven't?
Because I preserve my gift. I preserve my gifts. Okay, guys, but very, very briefly. First of all, Happy New Year, everybody. And Paul and Laura, thanks for putting all this on and making sure we can all keep in touch with each other, because never underestimate the importance of day-to-day contacts, discussions, and exchanging ideas. And whenever we're doing campaigns in my area to open a new community centre or something, I say, you never know where this will lead to, who will meet who at this centre, what will happen as a result of it. And in a sense, what we got here is an online socialist community centre. So well done, and thanks ever so much for doing it. Had we won the election 2019, my first statement was going to be funding to every local authority to immediately end all homelessness, all rough sleeping homelessness immediately. It can be done. It's quite possible. There is no need for it whatsoever. And when we were dealing with the early stages of the pandemic in 2020, the Prime Minister was refusing to even acknowledge there was a problem, ignoring what the World Health Organization was saying, and telling everyone how he didn't really like them or trust them. And then there was a concerted Tory campaign to cut funding to the World Health Organization. They eventually changed their minds on that and put a little bit more money into it, not very much, but they did put some more in later on. But I think the pandemic has shown the worst and the best of our society. The best has been the health workers, the delivery workers, the cleaners, and all the groups that have done so much. Care workers, of course. And the worst has been the greed of Serco, of all the other companies that got contracts out of the Department of Health, and this massive, massive growth in inequality in the world, where the biggest corporations, think of them, Amazon, Facebook, Google, etc., have done incredibly well out of all of this. And in most countries in the world, the poorest are considerably worse off than they were 2 years ago. And in our own country, there are now more food banks than there are branches of McDonald's. Doesn't that say it all about modern Britain? And I think the worst aspect of the past year has been the media acceptance of the poverty and inequality that goes with all this, and this hypocrisy of applauding health workers, then denying them decent pay, applauding care workers and allowing them to try and survive on minimum wage, and then Tory MPs helping out at Christmas at food banks. Well, they're the ones that cut universal credit. They're the ones that have created these unbelievable levels of stress and poverty in our society. And it's global also, because the refugee crisis, and it is a crisis, is brought about by war, instability, human rights abuse, environmental degradation, and so on. But every one of those 70 million people that've got no home to call their own are people. And are we to pull up the drawbridge, put up the barbed wire fences, put up all the surveillance equipment and assume that somehow or other the issue is going to go away? And so I think there's a few people we should take our hats off to. And some of those are in the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, those are the coastal communities around Britain that have welcomed refugees that have struggled ashore. And despite whatever the Tories say, nobody willingly puts themselves and their children in a cheap, inflatable craft to try and cross the English Channel in order to get to a place of safety. Nobody does that willingly. You do it out of total desperation. And then you start to look, if I may just say this, on the causes of refugees around the world. The biggest group at the moment are from Myanmar. Fairly obvious why. The Myanmar army has been persecuting Rohingya people for 50 years, and it's got worse and worse. And most have got to Bangladesh. Others have been floating around in leaking boats in the ocean, and finally Indonesia has admitted some this last week. And then all over the Americas, there's Haitian refugees. Now, ask yourself this question. Haiti achieved its independence from France in the late 18th, early 19th century, led by Toussaint Louverture, who ended slavery and tried to establish a first Black Republic. The price was high. It was high in lives that were lost and in the massive, massive debt that was heaped upon Haiti to pay off the slave traders and the owners of the country. That was in the early 19th century. Go forward 200 years, and the debt is still there, bigger and bigger and bigger. Haiti's never had a chance of proper development. And those that are refugees from Haiti around the world, they're the ones that are victims of that. They're the modern victims of the historic injustices of colonialism. So there's a lot we can think about here. And then we can do things. And I think, to me, the highlight of the year, there's been many highlights, was the day we had the march in Liverpool against the International Arms Fair. Anna was there and others were there and pointed out that sell arms to Saudi Arabia, you're not really in a position to complain about the bombing of Yemen. You're not really in a position to object to the cholera and all the other wholly preventable diseases that are killing the kids in Yemen. If you sell arms to Israel and they're used to bomb Gaza, or they're used to evict families from Sheikh Jarrah and to expand the occupation of the West Bank, and now, apparently, with American approval, there's going to be a doubling of settlements in the north of on the area that was taken over from Syria many, many years ago, known as the Golan Heights. Then we are complicit. And so it is up to us to understand power play in the world. So there's two things I want to say on that. It was after that fantastic march in Liverpool, and it was a fantastic march, and it was, I've never been on a march before where you go through a shopping centre, because normally you go through a shopping centre on a march, and I've done this many times in London, and people come out the shops and sort of moan about the traffic being held up, moan about the buses being delayed, or just moan because of lack of anything else to do at that moment. in Liverpool, they even came out of the pubs to cheer us marching past against the arms fair in their city, and I was so proud of that. And then later that day, I went to Wigan for the Diggers Festival. It was massive, absolutely massive, and great fun and joy there. Think about it. Would Gerard Winstanley and all those others diggers at the time of the English Civil War have believed that 450 years later, people would still be celebrating their vision of a world where there was fairness and distribution of opportunities for land use and all that? So I think there's a lot of things to be very, very proud of. My hopes for 2022 are that we build that sense of solidarity. We build on the victories over fire and rehire. We build on the victories of those that have fought against school closures, that have fought against cutbacks and all those things. But above all, the environmental campaigners that came to Glasgow in such massive numbers. And whilst the conference itself was a huge amount of greenwash, and I still don't understand what Jeff Bezos was doing there. Maybe his rocket landed in the wrong place, I don't know. But it's sort of bizarre what went on in the main conference. But the message that you will only get a climate change in a good direction if you have social change in a good direction as well. You cannot go on building an exploitative society that promotes consumerism at the expense of conservation unless you have a changed system. And so it shouldn't be the preserve of the middle classes to say they care about the environment. We all do. We all care about the environment. And it's working class communities that breathe the worst air, eat the worst food, have the shortest life expectancy, not just in Britain or in Western Europe or in the USA, but all around the world. So there's lots to be hopeful for of what will continue. And we ended the year with a great high. Gabriel Boric elected president of Chile. Elected president of Chile against somebody who was brought up, was trained, was developed by General Pinochet. Chile finally turned its back on the horrors of the Pinochet years and the oppression that went with it, turned its back on the neoliberalism of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. There's lots to be very, very optimistic about. And I've just been checking on my computer, and there's a wonderful bookshop in my area known as New Beacon Books, founded by John LaRose and others in the 1960s to promote Afro-Caribbean and other literature. And it's been threatened with closure. And in 2 days, we've raised £60,000 to ensure it stays open and becomes that centre for the learning of the history of colonialism for all children. Because if our children are brought up understanding the realities of world history and that we all get knowledge from everywhere in the world, then that's the way to a non-racist future. So I am very hopeful, very optimistic, and I promise to be very active throughout the year on lots and lots and lots of causes, because I think that's my job. Thanks very much.
Absolutely incredible. And I'm very open about my fangirling. Like, I fangirl about everybody on this call tonight, but like, I haven't disagreed with one word of that, Jeremy. You were absolutely spot on as always. And before you even came on this show tonight, the chat was filled with hashtag Jeremy was right, Corbyn was right. We all know it. You know, socialism's the way forward. We just need to get everybody to mobilise, as we've said early on. And I just love your generosity of character that you say, going back to originally when you were talking about food banks, that the Tories went and volunteered in food banks. Bless you. No, they didn't. They went and got a picture and went home. I don't know any Tories who volunteered at a food bank.
We do. Our local MP was a volunteer in a food bank, but we found out that someone who actually volunteered in the food bank had kept on coming and serving him tea because he wasn't doing any work, and she thought he was one of the customers.
Yeah, so yeah.
She'd been doing it for weeks, apparently.
Has changed some of our food banks into food cooperatives. And I think the work Ian Byrne has done on the Right to Food campaign, it's quite important that we empower people and collectivise what they do. And I'm involved with a number in my own community through the community centres that I'm involved with, and we're working in that direction. We need to empower people.
Absolutely. And I think that feeds into one of the lowlights that I experienced. I don't know if it was genuinely, like we said earlier, I don't know if it was this year or last year because they're all the same. But there was an interview with people up in Hartlepool after the by-election there, and they said that they'd voted for the Tories because the Tories, at least they gave us more food banks.
It was this year.
And I'm just like, you've missed the point. Like, we shouldn't need them. We need them because of the Tories. Don't praise them for giving them to us. And it was really depressing. And I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen. But as we said earlier, I think it is happening. I think people are a lot more aware, but don't know where to put that energy, and we've got to guide them. We've got to be like, right, do this. Here's a march. Here's an event. Here's something you can get behind, and just tap into what people care about.
We are about educating and empowering people, and through the Peace and Justice Project, our emphasis and priority this year is going to be on media ownership, media control, media right to reply, access to the media, and if we don't get a better system of us communicating with people and getting an alternative message across, then it's going to be very hard to achieve the kind of mobilised changes that we want. And so it is about, and we're putting a lot of emphasis and a lot of energy into that. So we will be doing a big event, probably March time, on the question of what happened to Leveson and the report there on rights of reply and ownership. And so please look at our website and see what's going on there, and please join in all that.
You know what?
It's very important.
Jeremy, like you just read my mind, because at the beginning of this call, I said, like, big up Socialist Think Tank for what you guys do in terms of creating, like you said, a community center, an online community center for conversation around, you know, socialist thinking. But more importantly than that, like, big up Socialist Think Tank, but big up independent media as a whole. I think that's, I
Yes.
said before, I think before you came on, I said, you know, 2022 is the year of the people. And that massively includes, you know, the Independent Media Association. If you don't know, make sure you go online, Google the Independent Media Association if you're watching now. But
Just
like,
give me an idea.
go on, Jeremy.
Why don't we say 12 months time, 12 months this day, when we have a New Year's Eve socialist group like this, we get every single one of our comrades, be it Unite, Double Down News, Squawk whoever, to live stream the same message. So we have that as a sense of mobilization, that we're all there saying that basic principles of socialism, justice, human rights, environmental sustainability.
Okay, how about we do
we-
that in March? Let's do it in March when the Peace and
Well,
Justice.
obviously the event we're putting on, we would want that to be live streamed by everybody. That's why we've given ourselves a few months to get that, or 3 months to get that together to do that. But wouldn't it be nice if we ended the year by saying, well, this is the achievement we've got, that the left, in or out of the Labour Party, doesn't matter which union they're in, or indeed which country they're in, has got together and said something. And so I think there's a lot of very hopeful things around the world. The other thing I forgot to say, successes of the year. Come on, let's big it up for the Indian farmers. Biggest strike ever in world history. Let's big it up for them. They defeated agribiz, and they defended their system of farming, their way of life. Come on, let's big it up for them. Great people. Yeah.
Amazing. And it's all the wins we're talking about, and all the things that are positives that we've talked about so far, have been around people collectivizing and grassroots activism, and just, you know, doing what's right. And if you question the fundamental things that we all on this call, I'm sure, feel are right, then there's a problem there, because we're not asking for much. All we're asking for is equality, and equality of opportunity, and, you know, not a rich elite that has more power than somebody who, you know, who just was unfortunately born across a border that wasn't their fault. You know, it's ridiculous. But I'm getting into rant mode. I'm going to stop. I'll stop the wine as well. We haven't spoken to Chantelle properly
Can I just
about
come
your.
in and say about just prior to? Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. What did you want to come back on?
No, I was just going to say to Jeremy about the conversation prior to you joining us was that, you know, the reality is we are organised. There's pockets of communities up and down, chooses not to put it out there is the big problem. So, you know, we do need to organise our independent media. But we also have to say thank you to the likes of Double Down and Squawk, you know, for getting that information out there, you know, because it's not a lack of, you know, commitment or people actually delivering against some of the big issues like food poverty and period poverty and those issues, because that's happening right across the board, right up and down the country. But, you know, getting that information out so that other people can see that, yeah, you can band together and do amazing things in communities, but also
Absolutely.
to put the pressure where the pressure belongs on government for them to be doing more, you know, instead of depending on people who've got very little to share what little we've got with others who've got nothing. So the media side is really crucial, I think, going forward. And yeah, I would love to see that conversation this time next year as well.
Great. Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Jeremy, before I pass over to Chantelle, I just want to check how long have we got you for, because like
Not
it's a
much longer,
completely
though.
different
It's what we're
time
willing
over
to
there,
do.
isn't it?
It's a
I think we should.
completely
I think we should wrap up within the next few. But I do want to hear from Chantelle about what her prediction is, and then do like a quick roundup at the end. Yeah, that sound good. Chantelle, we didn't do your prediction yet, so you talked about some positives and some negatives, but you haven't talked about your prediction yet. So
My
let's go.
prediction for 2022. I do predict that we will kind of mobilise, and I don't want to be dramatic, but overthrow the Tories. I do think people have had it up to here with the Tories, and people are just seeing every which way that they failed us, and replacing Boris Johnson with another version of Boris Johnson is not the answer. We do need real leadership, and we need someone who actually, takes the pandemic seriously, takes the economic downturn seriously. And I do think the momentum that I spoke about before with the movements that we've had and the amount of boots that we've had on the ground is, at the moment, we've never been more united in across the board on the left, and also on the other side a little bit too. People going, it's not us, do you know what I mean? It's them, it's those who occupy number 10 at the moment. Like, Boris is not the one, but the whole party aren't. And I think the fact that they've shown so little regard for people, I think the one that did it was COVID. The fact that they were having those parties at a time, when people not even being told to stay home, but people, and I speak as someone who's going through this at the moment, cannot visit the loved ones in hospital. You do not know the pain of being told that you cannot go into a hospital when a loved one is sick. And then to know that while we had those regulations and we were sort of being good and saying, okay, it's for the greatest good of society, we need to keep everyone safe, they were just disregarding their own rules. And I think the lies, the kinds of the way that they view us as a class, this is the turning point. In 2022 is going to be the year that we say no, just absolutely not. We're not having it anymore, and you cannot claim to lead us or rule over us anymore. So my prediction is that the Tories are literally going to be out. The Tories are going to be gone. But I don't know who will replace them now. That's the other bit. I'm not sure. It'll be definitely be Labour replacing them.
Is that a job for Anna?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, thank you so much, Chantelle. Honestly, you've all been absolutely incredible tonight. And we've had a few comments in tonight as well. People who've been forced to isolate and haven't been able to go out and do anything. And we're really grateful that we've been able to put this together tonight. So I know you're all busy. I know it's New Year's Eve. And I just want to say a massive thank you for giving us some of your time. We have poorly children, so we're going nowhere. We're just stuck here. That's why we keep getting up. But yeah, it's been really lovely. And I think it's interesting how I can always depend on you lot to give us some hope and some enthusiasm, even after what we've all been through, even after the terrible last couple of years that have been dealt with awfully by an awful bunch of people who are in charge and care about money more than feelings or lives. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving us a much needed hope going into 2022. Thank you for once again being part of Socialist Think Tank's family. We will force you all to come on shows again. I make no apologies for that. I don't know how. I literally had like 24 hours to put this together. I was like, "You're coming on the show, yeah." So apologies, Jeremy. I do spam you quite a lot. But thank you again, and thank you again to everybody who's been watching and commenting. Your comments really do make the show, and they really do give us something to focus on and talk about, and let us know where we should be directing our energies. It's just so lovely. You are here with us. You are not just a viewer, you are a participant. So thank you so much. Join Socialist Think Tank, become a member. It is free. We are socialists. We're not going to make you pay. If you earn a bit of money, it'd be nice if you could, give us a bit of money. We do, yeah. Send the money our way so we can keep making this content for you. Yeah, we don't pay our guests, by the way. They come on because they're socialists and they are fantastic people. What I want to do now is, as we are wrapping up, I just want to give everyone one final word, your New Year's message to everybody. Dan, I'll come to you first, but you need to unmute because I can see you going all for it, but I can't hear you. Probably a good thing.
Yeah, I'll keep myself on mute while you're talking. I can never interrupt such a fantastic human like yourself. Hey, listen, yeah, I said before, 2022 is the year of the people. 2021 has been just as much a year of the people. We can only outdo ourselves, yeah? So when it comes to, helping out at the food bank, whatever you are doing, organizing in your workplace, whether you're involved in the Labour Party or are some other kind of socialist movement, yeah? If you are making that one little bit of effort, even if it's a tweet, just to support, talk, encourage the conversation about a different world where people care about each other, where the systems, the structures around us and above us, they care about people, whether it's the most vulnerable or even someone who might be doing okay, but they're hitting hard times. It doesn't matter who it is. We care about everyone. And that's socialism, right? That's what this is, socialist think tank, right? So think about how you can just display socialism in every single action. And through those actions, we start to organize in our communities. We start to bring people together around the issues that we all care about, that we're all concerned about, that we all have an emotion about. And as we start to bring people together, we find our common interests. We find the things that people have in common that we may never have thought about before. And we can start to build power. And when we build power, we can take out the likes of Boris Johnson. We can take out the likes of the mainstream media. Those few people who own the media and tell us what we're supposed to think about people coming to this country looking for a better life after our taxes have paid for bombs that have blown up their hospitals and schools and their communities. That media there, those people who are telling us what to think, they are the people that our power can overcome. We can overcome them. We can. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in the local elections or the parliamentary elections. It doesn't happen in the EU elections. It doesn't happen in the EU, in the UN. It happens right here where you are now, in your house, in your community center, wherever you are, whoever you're with, you can start to make that change. So it doesn't matter what year it is, but we're about to go into a new year. So make 2022 your year of just making that change in the world. And you are that change. Remember that. You are the change that you wish to see in this world. Big up Gandhi, big up Socialist Think Tank, big up the Independent Media Association, and big up you guys, yeah? Big up every single one of you guys. I love the comments. I need to go back through them. Love, peace, solidarity.
Man, this is where we get our clips from. These are going out. Thanks so much, Dan. I'm going to come to Anna now. Have you got any closing comments you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think in terms of the crisis that we've all lived through the last couple of years, and, the huge issues that we've discussed tonight around, food poverty, child poverty, a return to Dickensian Britain, lack of hope, in terms of, looking to those that should be making sure that all of our constituents and citizens are looked after. The people relinquishing their duty of care in terms of people there are all massive issues, but my primary concern going forward are about our youth. Our youth have had such a raw deal, even before the pandemic. But what we have to be mindful of is that our youth are not going to know the impact of the pandemic from a difficult position anyway. There's been little provision put in place for our young people in terms of education and employability, etc. But we've just recently had in Liverpool, the fatal murder, the stab and the murder of young Ava White, who was also a peace ambassador as well for the city. It was absolutely heartbreaking. But if you look across the country and look at all the stolen lives in terms of knife crime and gun crime, we need to protect our young people. We need to have a big conversation about how we go about doing that, so that our young people can freely go about their day-to-day business without fear of intimidation or harassment or, murder, as the final fear is about, literally staying safe and being able to go about their business. These are big issues that we need to be having, but we also need to be looking at the root causes and the core issues around, what do we actually give our young people to aspire to? What provision do we put in place to support them, to make that transition from, childhood into adulthood? And how do we make sure that they have something to aspire to going forward? And also, how do we rally round and put those arms around our young people and stop demonizing them? We hear nothing but bad news about our young people. We never ever get to hear all the amazingly good things that they do in communities. So, let's start talking about the good things our young people do. Let's make sure that we protect our children and make sure we get those knives off the street. Thank you.
Fabulous. Yeah, I don't think you'll get any disagreement from that, Anna. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm going to come to Jeremy now. Do you have any nice, I'm sure you do, we can use this as a clip later, your closing comments for the year?
Let's make it a year where we are strong, where we're confident, where we support each other, and above all, we create a world that's fit for the next generation. Young people, as Anna and others have said, have a really raw deal. Low pay, in some cases in my own area and Liverpool and other places, unemployment, insecure housing, the prospect of the Tories destroying our NHS, and they're going to have to pay for health care eventually if that carries on, and then insufficiency of pensions at the end of their working lives. And that is what the agenda is at the moment. So we need a redistribution of wealth and power. We need to embrace and support the creativity and the ambition and the hopes of young people. I was at a show put on by the Angel Shed Theatre in my area. It's a voluntary theatre group that we run. We have some paid staff on it. We don't turn any young person away. Anyone could join the Angel Shed Theatre group, and they write their own plays and they make their own performances. And their hopes, their ambitions, their ideas are all there. And that's what giving space and creativity to young people can achieve, brings them together to achieve some positive change in their lives and in the world. So let's remember those things next year. But above all, tonight, have a great time, enjoy the new year, see the new year in whatever state where you want to do that. And then next year, let's have the joy of each other's support and company as we show these miserable, nasty, horrible Tories and people that will not stand up to the economic norms of our society, the poverty, the injustice and the inequality, that they are wrong, and that real hope is those who believe in social justice and looking out for everybody. I think it's called socialism.
Oh, amazing. Thanks so much, Jeremy. I do have this awful thing of like, look at what you could have won.
I think the whole country's got that. Like, there was a discussion in my gym about that today, which is people who wouldn't traditionally have supported you at the time of the 2019 or 2017 elections, just kind of realising it is slowly dawning on people that, the big media corporations have fooled everyone into thinking the person who was on their side was their enemy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Awful.
You'd be amazed the number of people that come up to you in the street and say exactly that. In the most unlikely places, most unlikely people. Anyway, it's not the
Devastating.
past we're dwelling on, it's the future. Okay.
Yes. Chantelle, last but absolutely not least, do you have any little words that you'd like to give for the new year for everybody watching?
Yeah, mine's kind of a message of stay hopeful, and I know it sounds cheesy, but and I know that like a lot of us are just limping into this new year, tired, run down, just like we don't want another lockdown, we don't want another Tory policy, we don't want more austerity, but they do want us to feel beaten, and they do want us to feel isolated, and they do want us to feel alone, and they do want us to feel powerless, and that feeling can absolutely debilitate you. That can like stop you in your tracks. And I had that feeling in 2020 when I saw a black person murdered on a live stream, and it just felt like it was all too much, and I was alone, and what I was going through would never ever change. And the thing that actually changed that, and this wasn't even in like on a face-to-face, this was online, was reaching out and linking up with people who were kind of wanting to make a change. And there is honestly nothing more powerful, whether it be online, whether it be in person, than reaching out with people who are fighting for change. And you will realise that you are not alone. Like in the past year alone, there's been things that have given us hope. Like if you check out Nadia Wisdom's social, she's done this little post about like hopeful things that happened in 2021, and it says uplifting, you know, things like the UCU picketing and saving almost 40 jobs that happened this year thanks to BLM and people like me being on the street. The Welsh government's done a U-turn and said, oh, we are going to decolonise our curriculum. Every kid in Wales is going to learn about Black history, and hopefully England will follow suit. So we are having small wins, but we need to keep that hope, because if we don't fight, then we will never ever win. If we don't put up resistance, if we don't fight back, if we don't take to the streets, and if we don't say no more, then we will never stand a chance of winning. But if we do unite and we do fight back and we do take to the streets, then we might win. And even in that process, you find something beautiful. Like every single person on this live stream today, I didn't know until activism like came into my life. And I have met some amazing people who have literally held me up through parts of this year. So, like, without being cheesy, I hate football. Don't tell anyone I'm from Liverpool. But, you know, our little Liverpool anthem, walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. That song comes into my head so many times, and it kind of has been in my head all day today. Just keep on going, keep that hope, link up with organisations like BLM, United We Stand, and we are not alone. Keep on, guys, and, like, Happy New Year for 2022. It is going to be better. I can feel it. I can feel it.
Oh God, I believe you. I'm so happy.
So shall we do? Shall we do our quick predictions for the end of the year, and then we'll say goodbye?
Go for it.
Okay. So what's your highlight?
The World Transformed was a massive highlight. It was really, really cool. Lots and lots of really cool socialists all getting together. Amazing interviews. Yep, loved that. Massive highlight. Thank you for letting us be involved as well. The World Transformed. We are definitely coming next year.
Low light.
God, the list goes on. The list goes on. Mental health suffering massively as a result of lockdown and homeschooling and too much pressure and all of that was a low light. Prediction that we are going to keep going, we're going to keep fighting, we're going to find the strength from somewhere, usually from people like these people on the call tonight, and all the people who've been commenting. We'll get together, we'll be collective, and we'll be a force to be reckoned with.
Okay.
Yeah?
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for coming and being involved tonight. Thank you everyone who's commented. Do go to all of our socials. Do go to our website and sign up, become a member.
To Socialist Think Tank.
Send money. I promise we're not nasty capitalists. We will use it just to continue to make shows like this. And you guys who are on the panel tonight, if you can hang about for a little debrief after, that's great. If not, then thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. Happy New Year to you all. Happy New Year to everybody watching. We will see you in the new year. We're not going anywhere. Political Unmuted will be back. Socials Night Live will be back. And
let's give you Mark to play out with. We
have a lovely clip from Mark, who is another. So now we have 3. We've got Socialist Think Tank South East, Socialist Think Tank London. This is Socialist Think Tank Westmids. We are building. So yes, Happy New Year.
Yeah, do all the subscribing and everything like that, and we'll see you next time. Thanks everyone.
Cheers. Bye. Thanks.
Hi, it's Mark from Socialist Think Tank West Midlands. In case the Black Country flag doesn't give it away, black by day and red by night, from the furnaces and the chains, from the chain meccas of Cradley Heath. So hopefully we'll get back to see that. And of course, part of Leo Panic 2021. Yes, Santiago, I said 2021, so I'm hoping there will be some more years as well. So I've been asked to give my highlights and lowlights of 2021 and also give some predictions. So let's get straight onto that. First with the highlights, and I think it's got to be the solidarity and camaradeliness and political education we've had online this year. And as the gaffer said, we need to continue this when this pandemic is done. So of course we've got to talk about Socialist Think Tank, be that Politically Unmuted and Socialist Nightlife. So thanks to the team for that, and also for putting up with me when I've been driving for Socialist Night Live. I don't think I could do it. Politically Unmuted yet. I'm not up to John's standards. But also as well, the comrades at Labour Grassroots as well. So thanks for all that with Crispin, Pamela and John and the rest of the guys with that there. And let's not forget World Transformed, aka the Trot Jamboree. That's brilliant. If you want to see solidarity and camaradeliness in action, you need to get down there and check that out. The low points, we're not going to spend too much on that because it was just terrible, the elections. We need to be demonstrating what makes us different. So let's do that in 2022. And also let's talk about predictions now for 2022. Ooh, let's hope it's not like 2020. Anyway, so as I'm the Space Geek, I thought I'd talk a little bit about space. So first let's start with, of course, Musk. He's going to get to orbit with Starship. It's going to be late 2022, and hopefully we'll see some testing of New Glenn, which is Amazon or Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin's version of that with New Glenn. And hopefully we'll be getting to space with some test flights with SLS. We need to start talking about these, comrades, because it is going to be serious, something we need to be talking about in 2022, because people are going to be looking at it, especially with Don't Look Up. Also as well, looking locally, I do not see the cost of living is going to be matched with wage rises, so we will need to see industrial action. So join a union, and I think the way we need to show socialism is actually to show solidarity, and that even to those who don't show it to us. So there we go. That's what I think is going to happen in 2022. Peace, love, solidarity, and blessings. We'll see you next year. Be best. Solidarity.
Keep the red flag flying.